Oops, sorry. Oh, it's your bag.
Welcome back, everybody. We'll have the goals and evaluation. Can you put that out first? Sure. Okay. You want me to read my step-by-step plan? If you want to read your step-by-step plan. Okay. Making this. So we met and talked about the next steps in terms of that process. We talked about on the next meeting, the June 7th agenda, making sure that Stephen was able to present for the intercycle review. We also referred back to that red folder that we had given, and we know that the rubrics in there, that kind of hard copy, as well as some other documents in there that are in the folder. So this would be the time that we would use that document. Audrey and I talked about the best way to get the kind of editable version out to everybody, and we're going to email that to make sure people have that handy. Because the idea would be that we can take notes, whether you prefer to handwrite or type. Either is fine, but that we can do that during his presentation, afterwards. But that document would have to be filled out at some point and typed. So whether you handwrite and then switch that over to being typed, or just type, whichever is fine. But that it would have to be done, then submitted to the evaluation subcommittee, because then we'll have to compile everybody's individual ratings and compile into one overall that we would come back to a subsequent meeting, and we just talked about which one, whether it be the last one in June or one of the potential July meetings, and come back, and then we would talk about the overall ratings and findings and comments and things like that at that time. And as a reminder, all of the evidence, the evidence folder to refer to, when completing that. Audrey and I would certainly go over, deadlines for when we need that typed intercycle review submitted by to us.
And all the evidence is in the evidence folder, and Stephen's going to be adding more on June 7th when he presents his findings. But also in that superintendent evaluation folder is the document that we'll be working off of, but we'd like you to use the emailed version we give you, because it'll make you force a copy so that you'll each have your own version, so we're not seeing each other's comments. We'll email you a link to the document we want you to use for yourself.
Okay.
So that it's a private document just for you. It'll force you to make a copy versus that's like the original.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then, like Joe said, share it with probably both of us would probably be the best way, so we both have access to it once you're done. So I guess the big discussion at this point, too, that we need to have is when do we want to have the report out meeting? Because as of right now, we only have 2 dates in June set. June 7th being the one that Stephen is going to present at. June 21st would be a little too tight for us to have all the information compiled and sent back out. Do we also need to talk about next year and all of that too? Stephen, do we want to share about how we talked about that a little bit too? Like the overarching?
I think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah. So in my step plan, I started to kind of go a little further, and the idea that once we do report out and have a meeting of reporting out, what our also next steps will be of having school committee goals that we need to create at some point, updating the strategic plan and allowing Stephen to update his goals, not in October too. And then we kind of talked about the fact that we don't have another member right now, and that when we do have another member, would they partake in Stephen's evaluation if they are just joining us and they haven't kind of been through this whole period with us? So we are kind of like, no, that wouldn't make sense. But then at the same time, we have this same situation potentially next year with the possibility of 3 new members, really, you know, maybe two of us up.
You guys are on next thing?
And this current position, if, when it gets filled, will only be 1 year. So, so Stephen had mentioned too, the possibility of considering that maybe going forward, rather than waiting until June to do his evaluation, it might be a good idea to have that at the beginning of May, and then the findings can be compiled still, if the, however the seats lie, and then the findings did after the election season.
Because everyone will have waited at that point, so.
Correct.
So that leaves us.
So we want to make sure we kind of hit the ground running this year with some of these, you know, goal setting of our next set too.
So that's one of the things that we need to have on our, because we can't do it now because we didn't put it on the agenda. So we'll have to make sure that that gets on, is to get dates for starting after June 21st.
And we could, if we have a new member, we could plan out the year. If it's
So I think
just
at this
before,
point,
then we
because we
could
don't have
do
a
the
new
summer.
member, and we need to plan it out, we can do that, and if it becomes that person can't make those meetings at that point, we'll adjust, but I think we should try to get
Okay.
this on the calendar. I know for me, for planning purposes, it's better to know, like, okay, going forward, meetings are on Wednesdays or on Tuesdays or whatever, just to keep it, so that I can.
Yeah, I pulled up our previous dates and it had nothing in July anyway, or August for that matter. It didn't start until September.
We've had meetings in July and August, one, usually, one July,
The ones that were in the folder were April 26th, did not list any.
So we can add those, yeah.
We didn't have any date listed out, I'm saying for July, June 7th meeting, we need to start, and that's usually when we do, because we usually always meet in July.
Yes.
Usually just one meeting though, unless there's something that's going on. Like I know during COVID, we met multiple times,
We do have a doc that we had talked about doing back April 26th though, and that did not have any July dates added, so we'll have to make sure we add it. So the other thing we had talked about in this meeting too is that whether or not for our current circumstance, would we want to set a meeting for July to report out? Would we prefer to add in another one at the end of June for this cycle? You know, if we're hitting that time where people might not be here per se, you know? So, I don't know whether we want to decide upon that tonight, probably, or put it on the agenda for next time, which would be the 7th.
I think we have to put it on the agenda
Okay.
for next time, because it's, I mean, it's not necessarily an action of the report out. I think it's like a
Right.
different conversation. Do you think it can wait till the 7th?
I think it can.
In the meantime, might it be helpful if people sent like vacation dates to Jackie, so at least when we come in, we kind of all know, rather than just talking here from scratch?
Yeah. And if Jackie doesn't hear from us, that means we do nothing, because we're fine.
We're not 100% planned
Yeah.
yet
Okay.
necessarily.
Not a problem. I just know,
I got nothing.
like, the first Tuesday in July is July 5th, and then the second Tuesday, I'm at a conference, but I could always log in online too, so.
Yeah.
But we can talk through that, and I also said, I don't know what people's schedules are like, but if in the summer it was easier to put one meeting on a Friday at noon or something, we could do that if it was for something specific, but.
Yeah, as long as it's one of my off Fridays, that, you know, I can be, and I can, in the summertime, you know, we've met, you know, just like one random day in July and one random day in August. It could be any day of the week, and, you know, we can try to be accommodating, but it doesn't have to be as late, or, you know.
Okay, so I'll ask Jackie to put that on the calendar, and if people do have dates to avoid, you can send them to her. If not, then we can just talk for them the 7th.
All right. Anything else? I don't think that covered everything. Excellent. You guys are doing a great job.
Oh, I did. No, it's fine, I'll wait next time. Never mind. I was just thinking, the other thing we had kind of talked about, and again, how we talked about, we're not going to select committees, but on that same line, Jill and I both kind of said it'd be nice to be able to continue this committee because of, you know, you're just kind of setting that groundwork here first year. It's something that, you know,
So, why don't we circle back to that for a minute? Because,
Okay.
you know, I was thinking about this. So, really, the committees, Jen was on the budget committee and the calendar committee.
Yes.
So really, it's just those two committees that have openings potentially. I'd like to stay on the budget committee. I'd like to stay on community relations. So, you know, if we're all pretty comfortable, the new person could, you know, is replacing Jen, could replace her.
I'm also only on the community relations, so to not overwhelm someone new, I could also pick up one of the others.
Okay, would you have an interest in which one you'd like?
Well, and it's so hard without knowing who it would be. Like if they were someone, you know, who was a business person, I would say absolutely, why don't you take that? But if they, you know what I mean, like.
Okay.
So
fair.
that's kind of tricky, but I would definitely take one or the other, but they didn't want, so we could use someone in.
Sounds great.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
all right. So we will revisit it when we have a new member, but at least we kind of know.
I just felt like it was worth mentioning because it, you know, there is a lot to it. I said to Stephen, I was like, I feel like I'm stressed making sure we have everything. You know, for me, it's such a role reversal
Right.
piece. You
So
know,
basically,
making
we
sure-
can say though, everyone's gonna stay where they are, just the only thing, you know, will be that person
The
who
two
decide on the two
vacancies that we
vacancy
have.
seats.
as long as that's
As long
allowed.
as that's, right.
You
I
know.
think, when, we didn't used to even have subcommittees necessarily that were active, you know, so I think the way we're doing it, we're at least covering a bunch of different things and, you know, getting a lot of work done separately, so I think that there's, well, I'm speaking for all of you, but I feel like there's benefit in these subcommittee and work group meetings. Was an idea that Emery had, and I think it's really.
I think there is value in it as well.
Rather than trying, you know, it's a meeting that's posted, we're already all scheduled to be there, and I think it's just kind of a nice way too, so when we have visitors or whatever, they can come and be part of those meetings rather than having them like on a, you know, on a Friday in the middle of the day or something where it's maybe harder to get people to really want to.
Right.
So, all right, so we just circled back, now we'll come back, and, community relations, is there stuff in there?
You could set that up nice, probably better than I can.
So, the Community Relations Subcommittee, we spent a lot of our time tonight talking about the sixth grade capacity. Because we had said that that's going to be one of the things that we need to really work on getting out there. So, I'm going to choke my way through this.
Okay, I guess I can
Yeah.
interrupt.
I just got it.
Well played.
I didn't mean to kill her over here. But, so right, we kind of talked about that because we said regardless of what happens, we really need to start talking about it and how it's such a big thing that we want to make sure that we are very careful and thoughtful with planning on how we're going to reach out to people or potentially, like, once something is kind of developed, how we're going to plan to reach out to the community, which is kind of how it tied into community relations, because that was such a big thing that we heard the last time. And
We said that really, ultimately, the committee as a whole, we need to make a decision. We've got to draw a line in the sand so that we can start relating to people what our plan is, so that we can start to make progress for our plan.
right,
We can work with administration, we can work with community members and everything else, so.
I agree. Because the last time it was brought up, I don't remember how someone said it, but it kind of really resonated with me, was when, you know, through the discussions, you know, our goal and job is to do what is best for students with students' best interests. So then to then say, well, it's a numbers game. No, we're not doing a numbers game. We're making the choice that is best for our Granby students, like that
as a whole.
as a whole. For the lows, for the mids, to the highs, for all of the kids, all of our Granby students, what is the best decision for all? Not a numbers game, not a, and that needs to be our focus.
One actually said it very nicely too, where he said, you know, you're all elected up here to make these decisions. As much as we want to keep inviting the community in to really help us with this, I think that we do need to make a decision, and then after that decision is made, regardless of what it is, then we can thoughtfully plan on very detailed, so nothing is rushed regardless, and, you know, make that plan, but it is gonna come, you know, we need to make.
And then we can, you know.
I agree.
There's a lot of the gray areas that you know, questions that we don't know. And so, once the committee makes the line in the sand, it makes the decision. I mean, obviously, if we're going down the road and we're trying to plan things out and it doesn't look like it's going to work, we have the ability to be able to change our mind again, you know, if we need to. But I think, we need to put that onto our next agenda, and we need to have some heartfelt discussion about how we're gonna do that. We can't make that decision tonight, it's not on our agenda.
Do you want it on our next agenda where Stephen's presenting, or do you want it on the one after that?
I think I'd like to have it on both. I think we need to, I'd like to see it at the end of our meeting, and we can table it if we felt like we were running out of time. But I do think it's something that, I'm not sure it's gonna be a one-part
I agree.
discussion. And I think, you know, I'll ask you all to kind of go leave this meeting and really kind of put your thoughts down so we can have some starts of meaningful conversations. You know, just when we were talking about it on the community relations piece, there are a lot of gray areas, and there's a lot of questions that are unanswered no matter which way you do that. So if everyone can kind of take a stab at some of what they think some of those questions are, so we can maybe divide ourselves up to figure out, you know, who wants to tackle what, or I don't even know, just kind of.
Well, and I also did bring up that there's been so much talk of this, like throughout different forums and committees and subcommittees, that if we can also, with our thoughts, take some time, dig into our drive and find some information that very likely is in here, that people did a lot of work to do, that may be helpful also.
Do you want me to reshare that with everybody from the subcommittee?
So that, maybe send it to Jackie and have her put it in that folder for the 7th, the meeting on the 7th, so or it can go, should it be in the school committee resources folder, just so it's there, so we can all be, want to just share it there to the school committee resources folder?
You could create like a school capacity folder
I
in
think
the
it's
school
already in a
resources.
school.
Is it already there?
That's right.
Is that,
I just don't want to be doing work twice, you know what I mean? Like if we have a list of questions and people have already spent weeks and months.
Yeah, I
and-
have a school capacity work group folder. And then I have a couple PDF documents and,
Yep.
so, and
I
if I
don't
go
see
to
it
the,
in the school committee resources folder
it's
though.
not.
Okay, so we could just put,
And actually,
The
you guys
presentation
aren't on
is
it
here,
either.
though.
Yes.
I don't, the presentation is there, but I don't have the folder. I don't see it.
You guys are not on the folder that I'm seeing, but I can add you. So I can put a copy.
committee resources. Yeah, I think if it lives there, then,
I like having that school committee resources folder. I feel like it's been a nice place to have. And then we will actually need a new set of school, we'll need a 22, 23 school committee folder. So it should probably, all of that stuff should be carried over. The school committee resources should be in a new folder. Jackie can make it. She usually does. Because we are in the new, technically in the new school committee year.
maybe we could, I'm thinking maybe we reverse this folder and make the school committee resource folder the main folder. And then within that folder, have like a school committee 21, 22, school committee 22, 23, and all the resources. So then when you're, yeah, okay.
However you want it to work, just fine.
If that works with my organization that I have in here. Because I have
'Cause
school
I'm just
committee
thinking-
resources as like its own separate folder. So the end is all the dates.
Right, so I think all those dates should be in the 2021-22 folder, And then that 2021-22 folder would live in the school committee resources. So the school committee resources would be your main folder, and then next year's
Got it.
would be subfolders in there.
Got it.
Because otherwise, you're gonna have to create a 22, 23, and then you're copying a school committee resource folder every year.
Or it could just be its own folder, like its own, it doesn't have to live in a year, it could just be, like, we have a budget and finance committee, subcommittee folder that used to live out there, you know, so we can, I don't care however.
We'll work on it with Jackie, and if you guys don't like it, you can give us feedback.
Alright, that works.
Does that work?
So for next time, try to have some ideas, jotted down, and with the way that ideas go, how do you see the communications like how do this is coming, you know, like, just keeping that all.
I think so that communication piece will continue being talked about during the community relations, because it is such a long topic, and, you know, we want to also be thoughtful of our time and, you know, what we spend talking where, so I think that'd be a good thing to throw into the community relations regardless of.
So our next thing is school capacity discussion on our agenda, which is what we just talked about. Took care of two things at once, so that will still live on the agenda for June 7th as well. We had enrollment dashboard on, but it shouldn't be in this meeting, it should be the first one of the month, which is when we've been doing it, so that'll be June 7th. I was curious, is that in there because, is there a date in June or the other dates on there? We were talking about revisiting, I think that's why I was there.
I don't think so. What we thought, what we expected by the June 7th was the final school choice numbers should be in there, so we talked at the last meeting briefly, but those numbers haven't been finalized.
We had wanted to have it on this next meeting, but they're not finalized until June, so we said we would put it off until.
Yeah, the claims just went in 2 weeks ago, so we should have it by that meeting. And then June 24th is the last day for school choice applications to be eligible for the first lottery, which would be June 30th or July 1st. So, and then our K enrollment is still at 34, 35, which is what we had discussed about if we would open seats there, but at this point I would advise that we don't, because we could still see numbers increase over the summer.
Any other questions on either school capacity or enrollment for now, since we have them on there? Kind of combine the school capacity and community relations stuff, so that's fine. Next,
So we're,
go ahead.
nope, I think you're on it next, go ahead.
The regionalization draft, the letter. The memo.
Yes, so last meeting, it was requested that memo get put together so we could share it with Chris Martin, John Libera, Select Board, just kind of outlining what information we've heard back from other districts based on the letter and survey that we sent out in March. So we
My
got-
only question is when you click on survey there, the hyperlink,
Mhm.
it doesn't have the same results. Sorry, it doesn't have the same information that's in the letter.
No, it doesn't, because not everybody responded to the survey. Some people just sent us emails, which is why I included that information in the memo.
Which I like, but I want to make sure that, like, when I looked at that, or anyone else clicks on that hyperlink, that they know that the reason it's not in this typed out document is because they reached out separately, you know, I don't,
So,
So
should
they're
I
not like,
leave the
how
link
come-
to the results and clarify that, or remove the link to the results?
I don't feel like you need the link to results, given the fact that you itemized what you can. I agree, yeah,
Okay.
I think it'd be easier that way. Because I would just like for someone else to be like, well, how come it, well, you know, so-and-so's not listed in here, but they're here, like,
Okay,
makes sense, but I don't know. It just makes it add questions.
that's easy enough.
Mine was just silly, you said to share this with Chris and John Libera, I mean, select board, the select board is supposed to do it.
Oops, sorry. You're the chair now. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know that, I thought it was good. Great, thank you.
And if anyone thinks of anything in the next couple days, I'm happy to add, change, edit if needed. I'll plan to get it out by the end of the week.
Anything else on that? So I'm wondering if, that should probably be on the June 7th thing too, just so we can make sure that it went out and if there's any, we hear back from them on anything. Next up, superintendent's report.
All right, so want to give a shout out to our seniors. So we are in like full end of the year mode with seniors. They had their prom this past Friday night at Oakhome Farms. They had their senior trip to the Red Sox game this past Sunday. If you were watching and you're a Red Sox fan, they had a walk-off grand slam win. So our seniors were there for that. Their last day is this Friday, and they will be spending it at High Meadows in Granby, Connecticut. They have their senior banquet on June 6th. They have senior awards night on June 9th, and graduation is June 11th. The plan at the moment is an outdoor graduation. So looking forward to that, and congratulations to the class of 2022. One thing that I am trying to pull together, but as you may note based on the dates that I just read, is trying to get some of the, Jen had suggested this, the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship Award winners. This is the senior class the only class since 2003 that did not have to complete the MCAS as a requisite for graduation. But they were able to take the MCAS for the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship. So want to recognize those students. It was done a little bit differently, but I do have that list. So if some of them can make it that Tuesday night, we're going to invite them, but that is a busy week for them, as I indicated. So again, congratulations to them, and we'll all meet one more time officially before they are official Granby graduates. Want to remind people that tomorrow night we have 2 things going on campus, one at each school. Dino night here at East Meadow is from 5 to 7, and arts and literacy night arts night, is next door. It begins at 5:30 with a concert in the gymnasium, and there'll be art displayed and everything next door, art for sale as well. That's tomorrow night. We have our kindergarten transition night this Thursday from 6 to 7 here at East Meadow. The junior senior high school has underclassmen and middle school award ceremonies that they're planning, and an 8th grade step up award ceremony on Wednesday, June 1st. And the East Meadow Field Day is scheduled for Thursday, June 2nd with a rain date on Friday, June 3rd. And finally, we also have the 6th grade step up from East Meadow. That is on June 8th. And that is all I have.
Any questions or anything? All right, Adam, you have to-
I just not really a question, I'm sure that do you have anything like that, or objections to
banners or anything? So I know, the Booster Club is in charge of maintaining the banners at the high school, and there's a whole process. I've actually been talking with a couple of the members, trying to help update them.
Okay.
And they're usually, like, the high school one for the 1,000 points for basketball was unveiled at the night that that Nate Bro made his 1,000 points, so they did it right then.
Okay.
Um,
Even just like that being some of the stuff that we share here, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, too? I just think it's great to
It
like
might be
kind of
nice
keep
end
that
of the year.
positivity going.
Maybe we could try to, get a list of some of those things from Brittany, and if there's, one of the things that we, Audrey had sent me was like the top 10 or so of the class, like they were revealed on a banner, like, was that what it was? It was the top 10 or top 20?
And I did have them just like a sports banner, like the updated sports banners. Like, and I know they are reviewing it there, but
Like, I'd love to celebrate that too, because, you know, we have a different audience of people that do view ours. Like, just to kind of continue to share out to the public the good things that are happening. You know, that was probably in a private setting that you had to attend. I don't know, if GCAM was there filming it or not, but just another way to kind of keep the positivity of the great things happening.
It'd be nice to invite those kids here to be recognized, like, for
Right.
their achievements. So,
Exactly.
Gabby Walls, for her.
Show off their banner and,
Points,
you know.
April, 1,000 points.
And if there are important events, give us a shout and we'll try to be there.
Yeah, well, I think
Yeah.
those things that I know.
I
you
want to
were
bring the
at-
positivity to our meetings.
Yeah,
You
right.
know, get people in our door too, you know, even if it's their moms and dads to celebrate with them and it's showcasing it here with us.
Yeah, that's why I had mentioned to Stephen that I don't think either of you have seen it, or any of you have seen it, because you started in COVID, pretty much, is my first couple of years, the John and Abigail,
So
Adams
same.
they were here, and we had like a nice little reception for them, you
Yeah.
know. There was, they got certificates, they received their certificate, what I kind of say.
Yeah.
And then we took like a 15-minute break, and there was some cookies and cupcakes, and, mingled and whatever, and just congratulated them.
I would love that.
And then, they all left, and then I feel like we did some other, like, just awardsy kinds of things. Do you remember some of the other ones that we did? I know we did the scholarship one, because there was a ton of them.
well, and I know I asked about, the seniors, they've just gone off of that, senior commitments. I know Ally does some stuff on Instagram, but it'd be nice to almost compile that too and see like where are seniors going, like, so that is in actually the, part of the report that she sends out, so do you guys not see?
We do. Yeah, there's a link in there for senior, final commits. It's like a slideshow.
I know, but I like this format.
Oh, well, we can,
Of just sharing it like one time, I mean, especially, I just think it's such a big thing, celebrate.
So maybe at our next meeting on the June 7th, we have like a senior appreciation.
spotlight.
Senior spotlight, just kind of, we could do that. I'm not sure we can, do we just invite the entire senior class? I don't know.
I don't know, I want to bring more of that, like, community, positivity, like, stuff that's going on, especially there while we're here.
Yeah. I like that senior spotlight on the 7th. We could play that slideshow that Ally's been making. I think it was Ally that, putting it up, and we'll probably get some screenshots off of some of her stories from Instagram.
And then Booster Club has like a picture of the, bears in the hallway, like, if you just compile like a 5-minute video or however, and just kind of celebrate that here too, and you take a minute to recognize them for all their accomplishments. Yeah, and the sports thing might not even be necessarily seniors though, too.
Yeah, but we, right, yeah, because some of them are not.
But like, it's just stuff I wanna kind of do going forward, like if there's dates and names added to the banners and things, like I just kinda wanna bring all that here. And obviously that's not just sports too, like, art as well.
Your team.
And like arts as well, I don't wanna always be sport heavy.
We love sports, but also,
Any writing pieces or, art or theater or anything like that, that's just as important and valued there, I'll make sure that we're getting.
Yep.
Concerts and things like that. And then, do we even still have an academic decathlon?
Not since I've been here.
There's a banner in there. I don't know.
I've seen it somewhere.
But yeah, just some of that stuff, we've talked about that, and thanks for bringing that back up, and circling that in. Circling that back.
Anything else? Add that to our goals for next year.
It's like,
More of that sharing, even I'd love to see stuff even in, you know, the elementary classrooms and just like little things, you know, we spotlight
A grade or spotlight an art project or any of that stuff, you know, that's kind of just a show off, you know?
Yeah.
Not every meeting, but even once a month or something like that. I know, you know, other districts do the same thing in their schools, so they'll spotlight a school on a particular month and, you know, possibly work towards
a presentation and
things like that. Well, we could do once a month, like a spotlight in each school.
We
Well,
started to try to do that.
and we could
but-
do the,
I don't know, I don't wanna, like,
too, like we've had, you know,
hit 'em
Green
too
Spoon, like,
hard.
awards, those things should be
but, you
yeah,
know,
those are
I
some
just
of the
wanna see more.
highlighted.
I do, I'm not saying
I'm
once a
listening to
month.
Stephanie and trying to listen to Audrey too.
Sorry. Cause I'm like reining it back a little, I'm like, don't get too crazy and make you do
Yes.
like every single month, that's not what I'm trying to get at, but.
No, and I think too, we like dipped our toe into some of it this year with the Daily Dino and the coding tonight, the
Yes.
computer
Mhm.
science
Exactly.
piece, but doing something more like short videos, things like that, I think that's easy enough to do something once a month or something thereabouts. So I think it's a good idea and something to
Agreed.
ruminate on.
Love it. Keep it coming. Nope, I'm done. Sorry.
Couple of things. One, the East Meadow Lightning Project. John and I actually had a pretty good conversation with someone at the vendor. Last week, there had been some miscommunication throughout the process, but our cameras are on order. We should have them soon, and that project should be wrapped up. I did express my concern with them that we are going on a year, and this is still going on.
Thunderstorm season.
Yeah, but again, the person that we finally talked to kind of heard our side of the story, didn't have all of the information or didn't know our side of the story, so I think we're at a good place, hopefully. So that should be wrapped up before the year anniversary, although I don't know.
What is the year anniversary?
July 18th or something like that? Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm sure it's July 16th,
Yeah.
but I could be wrong.
Food service RFP, so I need credentials to get on or to post the RFP onto the state contract website, Combis. So I'm just waiting on Chris to set that up because he's the authorized user for the town. So I just need credentials from him so I can post it. I followed up with him today, left him a voicemail, but I haven't heard back, so we'll continue to follow up to get that. We're in the middle of end of year cleanup, so next meeting, I should have an update to see where we're at for you guys. And then we submitted the transfer request to Finance Committee for the boiler repair work, so we haven't heard anything back. I'm not sure what the process or the next step in that process is, but we did submit it a couple weeks ago, I think.
Maybe last week.
So we can follow up to see what the next steps are.
Any questions?
And free lunch is through,
So right now it's through June 30th. There's again legislation.
We should have a letter to
Yep.
share with you.
Next meeting.
At June 7th,
Yep.
that we're planning to send out, that we're holding off in the hopes that it does get approved, but we have a letter drafted that notifies families that if we're going back to paid lunches, what that looks like, just to get it out before the end of this school year so that it's on people's minds
Yeah.
moving forward.
kind of scary just like to think about just with the increase in poverty level people in our town, the number of people using Granby to Go increasing and everything, it just seems like, oof, that's gonna be tough.
Yeah, and I think even just for families who have kind of been on that borderline, who have been able to get free lunch and things like that, yeah, it's really challenging. I'm surprised, to be honest, that it's gotten this late in the game, but
Yeah, me too.
it seems like there's some confidence that it'll get pushed through, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of action to back up that confidence. So,
And, so nothing else?
No, just, I had heard that they were thinking a decision might not be reached until July. Are you kind of hearing the same?
I haven't, but I'm not
I'm not
sure that
yeah.
could possibly be it. Yeah, I don't, again, why it took this long to start legislation and why now it's taking so long. So I'd be surprised if they didn't continue it. So maybe that July date, so they can really figure out the details that this is the last year and then next year we would go back, but I don't know. Yep.
All right, and we don't need to see it. Occasionally, okay. All right, is there anything else that we need to discuss? Nothing else? All right, if not, I'll take a motion.
I will give you that motion to, no.
No, no
Okay,
second
adjourn.
session.
I was just like, wait a second, maybe.
Just to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.